Seceda. If you've seen any photos of the Dolomites, you've probably seen this iconic ridgeline with its dramatic peak stretching into the sky like something out of a fantasy movie. And don't get me wrong, it's absolutely worth the visit. But here's the thing, most tourists stop there, snap a few photos, but miss out on the real magic that's hiding just behind those famous peaks. What if I told you there's so much more to Seceda than just the ridgeline? I'm talking about epic hikes that wind through stunning landscapes, charming refugios where you can refuel on some of the best food you'll ever have on a mountain, and views that will make you forget all about the crowds. In this episode, we're going beyond Seceda, literally. I'm going to show you the hidden gems that most people overlook, the trails that will take your breath away, and not just because of the elevation, and the insider tips that will make your Seceda adventure unforgettable. Ready to explore what you've been missing? Let's go!
Good morning.
Good morning.
From a amazing 2 cable car experience.
Oh my gosh.
To go up from 𝗷𝗄𝗃 to Ferns to Seceda. And that second cable car looked pretty gnarly.
It was so
looked
smooth.
Like it was going to go straight up, but yeah.
Yeah, it was so smooth. One of the smoothest rides I've been on. Yeah, one of the most ominous and slightly scary looking.
It looked a bit gnarly,
yeah.
But worth it. Heading up to this viewpoint of the ridgeline of Seceda. And of course, like everything here, there's a place to eat and drink right at the top.
Amazing.
So you can hike around it, or you can actually sit and look at it. Either way, it's a win-win.
It's amazing here.
There's something to be said about when you first lay your eyes on something so iconic, something that you've been wanting to see for such a long time, but you've only ever seen in pictures. There's such a thrill to it, being able to capture it in and experience it in a ways that you know your photos are never going to fully capture, because they never do them justice, do they? You want to follow the trail right along the ridge line, because those peaks are going to rise more and more and more, and all of a sudden you are literally in front of that famous ridge line, and it is just as breathtaking as you've imagined. Walking along that ridgeline, it's epic. You've got these towering peaks looming in front of you and endless valleys on the other. You literally have an opportunity to feel the essence of what Seceda is, not just the sights, but the wind, the weather, the terrain. You could literally spend hours just hanging out along this trail, stopping to take in the views and really soaking in what is in front of you. And yes, this ridgeline is so iconic. It's so beautiful, it can take your breath away. You could literally just come here and not take another footstep beyond the ridgeline to get a complete experience. But my friend, there is a whole other world out there for you. Now, after you've taken a few precious moments to soak in what is classic Seceda, you've got a choice to make. And this is where the Beyond Seceda Seeker comes into play. You could stay up top, take in those jaw-dropping views, and honestly, no one would blame you. But if you're up for a bit more of an adventure, there's a trail that's calling your name. Enter the Seceda Refugio Forense 𝗘𝗅𝗘𝗍 Trail. It's a 4.4-mile point-to-point hike that takes about 2.5 hours to complete. Honestly, it's going to take you longer because you're going to want to stop at the refugios dotted along the way, especially the one at the bottom, which I'll share in a bit. Here's the twist though. This is an out and back trail, but in reverse. You start by heading down and then you'll have to work your way back up. That's good to keep in mind based upon the amount of food you decide to eat at the refugio. So we decided to go with Beyond Seceda, and just as we did, the skies opened up, and the instant we started, there was no doubt we made the right choice. The trail got so much quieter, like really, really quiet. You see these little huts nestled into the mountainside, almost like they're hiding out from the world. And as you keep going, you realize that the ridgeline keeps extending off to the left, revealing more of it and giving an angle that you wouldn't see if you just stopped at the top of the ridgeline. The trails here become so peaceful. There are stretches where we didn't see a single soul. Most of the people we saw were the ones hanging out at the refugios. As you make your way down this trail, the first adorable thing you're going to see is this charming little refugio run by this family, and on their little handwritten signs, they share the homemade cheeses, milk, goods that they have that are literally fresh from their farm. You cannot get any fresher than this. So seriously, on this trail, stop at as many refugios as you can, because as you do this on this trail, not only do you get to enjoy the food, but you get to enjoy this landscape, stepping into a completely different world where you're leaving the rocky ridgeline behind and descending into these lower alpine pastures.
So we've discovered that going back to hike in the US is going to be a bit of a problem.
Impossible.
See, not when you have incredible facilities, clean, tons of food. I mean, look at this. Everywhere you turn, practically there is a place to stay and eat and drink and go on a swing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite spots here is what I like to call the rock garden. It's filled with these massive old boulders that have tumbled down over the years and are now covered in vegetation and moss. If you're a climber, by the way, this is your playground. You can even scale some of these beauties. It's like the ultimate place to go bouldering. What's even crazier is that we hadn't seen another soul on this stretch of the trail for about an hour. It's like we had this whole magical rock garden to ourselves. All you really need to do is just keep an eye on the trail markers because they're in 3 languages. So make sure you're following the signs for Refugio Forense, also known as a Regensburger hut. As you get lower, everything's gonna change again and you're gonna start dropping into the tree line. And it's so wild because you really can feel now how you're hiking in reverse and still being able to see Seceda from a completely different angle. As you're making your way down the trail and you catch that first glimpse of the refugio, it's like finding a hidden gem in the mountains. You can't even believe that there's a refugio here. You'll see these horses grazing nearby, casually hanging out like they own the place, which they kind of do. And it just adds to this epic vibe because the views are incredible. You're surrounded by more of the Dolomites region and this whole valley stretching out in front of you. It's the kind of place you could just lose your sense of time, and honestly, we did.
Okay, just so we remember a day in the life of hiking in Dolomites. We are drinking up in a refugio, looking out at the Dolomites, and we're going to be eating bratwurst and pasta. And then we have a gentle hike back up to one of the most beautiful ridgelines on earth called Seceda, where we can stop at another refugio to have a drink and look at it. Then we will take 2 cable cars down to go to our hotel tucked in the little beautiful area of Lyon and have a 4-course dinner, and then go down to experience 4 saunas. That is our day.
It's a tough life.
I'm so grateful.
I'm so good.
It feels like an experience that you've created for yourself by just wandering and seeing what you're going to explore. That's what I want you to be able to experience by going beyond the ridgeline. It's time to tackle the journey back up, and please make sure you take time with that belly full of pasta, that you let it settle, because the uphill climb feels a lot steeper than it did on the way down. Now, even though I had mapped this on all trails and we were following a specific path, there are actual multiple ways that you can go to get back up to Seceda. I'm not even sure if these are all technically hiking trails, if they're farming trails, but I definitely got the sense that you can use all of them. Just don't be fooled. This climb is a little deceptive. It may not look bad, but your legs will remind you that you're still in the Dolomites. It's one of those sneaky uphill climbs where you think, oh, this isn't too bad. And then you're halfway up and your calves are screaming and your belly is saying, I haven't had time to digest this yet. And those mountain huts that look so quaint on the way down, they look a lot different now. The weather here can change quickly. We can actually see pockets of rain all in the distance. So needless to say, we had to make a bit of a dash to complete the loop. And that is the thing to keep in mind. If you just go to see Seceda, you don't have to be quite as prepared for the weather, but if you decide to hike further into this and do this trail, just make sure that you have layers to account for how quickly it can change from one season to the next in just a matter of a few hours.
Okay, final climb up. It's a little deceptive when you have a very lovely stroll down to lunch and then you have to climb up. And I think I may have made an error, because on all trails, I thought it said a 500 feet descent, but I wonder if it's actually 500 meters.
5,000. 500,000.
No! But it feels more like 1,500 feet than 500.
For sure.
How do you say it again? Mi
dispiace.
dispiace. but worth it.
Worth it.
So looking on at it all, if you stop at the top, you're missing out on the real magic of Seceda that lies just a bit further down the trail. Yes, the ridgeline is spectacular. It's what draws everyone in. But after all, the real adventure begins when you leave the crowds behind and venture into the path less traveled. You'll find perspectives of a landscape you'd never see from the top, and it's a really satisfying feeling knowing you've gone further than most, that you've pushed past the obvious and found something really special and really tasty. These are the moments that make 𝗘𝗍𝗃 more than just a pretty backdrop for photos. It's about the connection you build with the landscape, that sense of accomplishment, going deeper in. This is where the true adventure lies, beyond the well-trodden paths, in the places where the real beauty of the Dolomites quietly awaits those who are willing to seek it out. To also make this Beyond 𝗘𝗍𝗃 experience easy for you to do, I've put the link to the trail and the refugio in the description and in the pinned comment at the top. Now that you've seen what lies beyond the famous 𝗘𝗍𝗃 ridgeline, I'm curious, what part of that hike caught your attention the most? Was it the hidden trails, the epic views, maybe the idea of grabbing a cappuccino at every refugio? Let me know in the comments what you found most intriguing. And if there's something you'd love to share about your own experience in 𝗘𝗍𝗃, let me know. And remember, the best experiences often come when you go just a little further than anyone else.
Here's the shot for posterity. So, Seceda is right behind us as we've made our full loop from the ridgeline to the Refugio Firenze. Back up and up and up and up. Yes. You too. And when we get to the top of the cable car, we will be rewarded with one final gorgeous view unobstructed by fog, which is very rare. Very grateful. Nice job. Proud of us.
Hey, thanks so much for watching today's episode. Take a second and like this video, then subscribe to Explore This so you can get notified on when the next episodes come out, where we're going to be seeking adventure, tasting the world, and discovering everything. So excited to have you with me. I'm your host, Jen Ahana, and I will see you next time.
There's my superstar.
Yeah. We crushed that.
We sure did.
Wow. We still have a ways to go.
𝗙𝗘𝗃𝗃 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀.
You don't want sausage. You want a rustical sandwich.